This is
Ruchem aboim b'shem Hashem, b'shem Yirgin Shirter, I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Rabbi Yakov says Mishnah on Dinei Shalom Legabe Lechem Mishna, the Lechem Mishna that's not complete. To have the great source of sponsoring a shir, call Yirgin Shirter at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Harav Smith.
we heard a shiloh where someone baked Challos and they put two big Challos on a pan, and during the baking the two Challos stuck together. So you had two shilohs. First of all, can you use it as it is? Take two Challos which became one, and if you have to take it apart, what happens? Which inevitably some of the Challah on one side sticks to the other side or sticks to the pan. So you end up losing the shaleim. So the question basically is, which we'll see as many nafkamin, what is the definition of the word shaleim legabe lechem Mishna? If a little bit's missing, a little bit stuck to the pan, or one challah sticks to the other little bit, is that still considered shaleim? How do you define the word shaleim? This is in Yonah D'Yoyma. We talk about eating the mitzvah of matzoh, where almost many of them are missing a little bit, chipped a little bit, or cracked a little bit, or burnt a little bit, and everything else in between, Be'ez Hashem, about what exactly is halacha of Lechem Mishna, mitzad it being shaleim, it should be complete. So the emphasis is that we have to realize the chshivus of Lechem Mishna b'chlal. The pashtus of the Gemara seems to be that Lechem Mishna is a deraisa. The Gemara in Shabbos Kuf Yizayin Amud Beis, b'Shabbos chayiv adam levtzoy al shtei kikaros d'chsiv Lechem Mishna. The pasuk says v'yayim hashishi loktu Lechem Mishna shnei ha'oim le'echad. Zok the Taz in Hilchas Chanukah, got a different sugya, but Tafresh Ayin Chesiv Cotton Beis, that he feels that the Lechem Mishna is a chiyuv deraisa based on the pasuk Lechem Mishna. Simple reading of the pasuk. Now many, if not most, argue that the pasuk is only an asmachta, but definitely it's a chiyuv, it's a mitzvah derabanan l'chol hapachas based on the pasuk Lechem Mishna. But we have to clarify. We step back for a moment, and that is, of course, you have to have Lechem Mishna. Who dare be mezalz on Lechem Mishna? But who said it has to be shaleim? Lechem Mishna means a double portion, two pieces. Where do you see that has to be shaleim? Now the emphasis is every time we make hamotzi, even during the week, the Halacha in Shulchan Aruch, Kuf Samach Zayin, Sif Aleph, they're supposed to have a lechem shaleim. You're supposed to make a hamotzi on a whole bread. If you buy a roll, so make a hamotzi, and then you could cut it open and make a sandwich. But you're supposed to keep shaleim even during the week. So why can that be the source of Lechem Mishna being shaleim? But the problem with that is very simple. Because if the chiyuv on Shabbos is not different than during the week there's no chiyuv to buy a roll for breakfast. You could buy a loaf of bread and every day have a piece of bread. You could have a slice of bread every day. There's no chiyuv to have shaleim. If you have shaleim, don't ruin it. But Shabbos, it seems that we go out of our way, we buy bilkulech, we have shaleim. Is it only the regular din of during the week? Then there's no chiyuv to have a shaleim. If you have it, keep it. So where did the concept of shaleim come from b'chlal? And once we have that, we could apply it more l'maisa. So there's a Gemara in Psachim Kuf Tezvav on a base Agav it's Yonah D'Yoyma, and Gemara points out that on Leil Seder we do something we don't do the rest of the year. So Lechem Oni Ma'ani Shedarke Beprusa Afkan Beprusa. Zok the Gemara that really the whole year we have Lechem Mishna on two whole matzos, two whole Challos, matzos, but Pesach we like to be like an ani, and we have a broken piece. If you look at the Rif, his girsa is that Pesach by night we use a broken matzah, but Shabbos chayav of tzayah shtei kikaros shleimos b'Shabbos. It seems the Riv's gears in the Gemara was you have to have 2 shleimos. So according to the understanding of the Riv, it's a beferish Gemara. Okay, can say. Also, and the Meiri and Brachas Lamed Testament Beis, where the Gemara says Chayv Ad Matzoh b'Shabbos al Shtei Kikaros, the Meiri seems to be girls the word shleimos. Sakti Lahiras Nasn Chelik Aleph Siman Yudalid. There are 2 mashmois in the Rishonim that you have to have shleimos based on the Gemara. Fine. But the emes is there's a more mefurisher makar in a Gemara. Now listen to this. You hear how an ois of a Gemara has so much meaning. As I told you, the Gemara says in Psachim, it's also in Brachis, that Pesach by night we take a broken matzah. Grab the minig agros only to have 2 matzos. So you make a matzoh lechem and haaretz, only 1.5. But that's okay because Pesach by night is darkish till ani beprusa. Right after the Gemara says Pesach by night, we use a porus. Sagt the Gemara, b'Shabbos with a vav achibur, chayiv ad matzoh al shtei kikaros. You have to have 2 kikrim, and a kikah is a whole loaf. So it seems that the Gemara is making a contrast. During Pesach by night, that is, we take 1.5. But b'Shabbos, you have to have 2 kikaros. What does it mean to say? Shleimos. And Taka, if you look at the Mechaba, in our Siman Reish Ayin Dalet Sif Aleph, Baitzei al Shtei Kikaros doesn't say a word about shleimos. There are more adds the word shleimos. Zok the Goyin shleimos. Where the more get it from? Came Mashma Brachas Lamed Testament Beis, and he sends us to Gemara in Brachas Lamed Testament Beis. Now we often mention that's one of the treats of learning halacha b'Iyan. The Goyin, the Bir Agra on Shulchan Aruch, every word is oisketzeichem, and oisketzeiled. Because mamish, you see how he learned up a Gemara, a smichus, that Pesach we use a broken matzah. But a regular Shabbos, we have to have 2 kikaros, shleimos. Alamaisa, Taisus also assumes you have to have shleimos on Shabbos. How do I know that? Because Taisus points out, during the week when you make hamotzi, so before you make the matzoh, you break the roll slightly. So after the matzoh, you can quickly take it off and eat it right away to avoid hefsek. So even though we keep it shaleim, but we make it partially torn. But Dr. Taisviz, Shabbos don't do that. Because if you do that, you might end up tearing too much and you lose the mile of shaleim. So Taisviz certainly assumed that you have to have a shaleim on every single Shabbos, more than Pesach by night, and the chayra more than a regular day. Because a regular day, there's no chiyuv to have shaleim. If you have it, keep it shaleim. But every Shabbos and yomtov, chayiv ad matzoh, 2 kikaros, shleimos. Now the Ma'aser, the third Tamim and Parshas Nosai, Perek Vav, Ois Kuf Yud Ches, he adds a little more geschmack, and he says that if the Gemara tells us that a broken challah, broken matzah, is not is darkish only beprusa, so it's missing in Kvoid HaShabbos if you take a broken challah, broken matzah. So it's a Kvoid HaShabbos, it's a Kvoid HaMitzvah. So basically we're going to say that Lamaisa, the makar of a shaleim is, it's more than the regular weekday shaleim, it's a din in Kavod Shabbos, in Kavod HaMitzvah, to have like the mon, 2 kikaros, shleimus. I should mention Bechlal, the Teres Chaim, and that was one of the early Achrayim in Sanhedrin Kuf Beis. He says that Bemes, we mentioned last week rather, that a Yid's eating is not stam eating, a Yid's eating is a Mizbeach, it's an Avodah, and on the Mizbeach, everything had to be shaleim, and that's why the Challos that we eat on Shabbos has to be shaleim, even during the week. So there's definitely Al Pi Kabbalah, Al Pi Halacha, not just to have 2, but to have 2 shleimus. The big question is, how do you define the word shaleim? Shaleim means complete. So if you think about the simple type, shaleim, complete, it can't be missing at all, which makes Pesach very challenging. Because a matzos, a lot of them have a little nook and a little the crack over here. It's not shaleim. If you follow the analogy to Mizbeach, again, the Mizbeach has to be perfect. But if you learn like we just understood, that it's a din in Kavod Shabbos, a din in Kavod HaMitzvah, so a small piece that you can't even see it, it's not noticeable. Who said it takes away? But then again, the word shaleim means shaleim. I mean, I'll give you a dugma ba'alma, zeichel dava. Esrik shechasa, afilu mashu, says the Mechaber, in Tafresh Memches Siv Beis, is possible for a sukkis. So maybe who adin, a kicker that's chasa koshu is possible, it's not a shaleim. So we have to find in halacha, in Shas, a combination of the word kicker and shaleim. You have to scan through your mind to go through Shas. Do we find any other place that the word kicker shaleim appears, and then whatever goes there will apply here? So I'm sure you know it's a sugya, a beautiful sugya in Erev in that Payamid base. The Mishna says that the first sheet told you can make an Erev Chatzeres out of anything you want. But we paskin, no. That it comes to Erev Chatzeres, you have to use a kicker, which Rashi says kicker shaleim. So that combination, you have the Mishnah and Rashi. You can't use any food but a kicker. Kicker is a loaf. Typically, kicker means a shaleim. So the Mishnah is saying, we pass like a Yeshua, you have to have a kicker. But the Mishnah makes it very clear. You could have a huge koilich, huge challah. If it's missing, it's not good for Erev Chatzeres. You could have a tiny, small bilkla, the longest size of a groigeris, which is the size that you have to give for Erev Chatzeres. If it's shaleim, it's kosher. So this is mamish what we're looking for. You have to have a kicker, and the ikar of Erev Chatzeres has to be shaleim. So the chayra, we should be able to apply that to Hilchas Erev, to Hilchas Lechem Mishna, to kikaros. But you look at the Gemara, you start to wonder if that's correct. Because the Gemara taka, the next Amud, pay Aleph Amud Aleph, and Erev, and asks a question. Prusa my time aloi. What's wrong if you have a big coil just missing? Zok Gemara, Mishum Eva. So Rashi explains, because when people have to chip in, they want everybody should be mentioned. I give a nice, beautiful challah. You gave a broken challah. So there comes a machlaikis. You know, we're doing something together, jointly. Why can you be a little more generous? You're missing cover at tzibur. Now, this is consistent with the side of Erev Chatzeres. Rashi says in one place, the Erev Chatzeres, we join together different families. It should be a shutfis noicha bareva. It should be a pleasant, joint effort to become one. Eva is just the opposite. Eva means you leave machlaikis. What causes that resentment? When someone uses a broken matzah or broken challah, whatever it is, I gave a nice one, you can't give a nice one. Now, this is kedai to mention, it's almost Erev Pesach. The minig Yisrael is to make an Erev Chatzeres Erev Pesach, and you take a matzah. Typically, you take a shmura matzah to keep it for the whole year. And people sometimes make a cheshbon. Logically, it's correct that listen, there's so little shleim in the box of matzah. I need it. Erev Chatzeres, I'm not even eating it. So I'll take two nice big pieces, put it in a bag. I'll make an Erev. We don't need it anyhow, right? Wrong. The one thing that passes Erev Chatzeres is just that. And even with the Eved, you're not Yoitza. Erev Chatzeres has to be a whole, whether you use a challah, or chametz to matzah during the year, or pesach to matzah, it has to be shaleim. That's the din hagemara. What's the reason? Eva. Now, what's shat in Eva? We explained. Now, the Gemara then adds something that extremely gave our sugya. Nitla heimena kedei chalasa lamaisa, it is no good. But nitla chalasa kechalas nachtoim, then the erev is fine. Which means, if you have a matzoh or challah, and less than the share of 1/48, which is the share that a nachtoim has taken of challah, that's a little less than 2%. If less than 2% is missing of the challah, it's still shaleim. You hear that? The big koilich. But if less than 2% is missing, it's still good. I'll give you a mashal. So as I say, for Shabbos b'Shabbat, he gives a good, nice mashal. The standard machine matzahs are 7 inches square, 7 by 7. So the area of a matzah is 49 inches. So if you're missing a square inch of matzah, that you can all visualize how much an inch is, but you're missing a square inch of matzah, it's still good. Because 1/49th is perfect. It's less than 1/48. So that's giving you a little bit of a picture. 1/48 or more is pasul. What's pshat? So the Gemara says pashit, because since the reason is ava, so if someone took off a small amount, 1/48, no one resents it. Fakir, he did a nice thing, because we can't eat it if it wasn't taken off challah. So part of the eating the challah to be edible, you have to take off challah. So therefore, als ava is a problem. But if you took it off als the other reason, als challah, it's fine. Now the Rosh in Erevin, Perek Zayin, Siman Yud Beis, goes a step further. He says, let's say you didn't take off challah. Let's say your child took a bite out of the challah, and you're missing less than 1/48. Look, the Rosh is still kosher. You know why? Because people don't know what happened. They see something missing. They think the Baal Boss was an Erlich Yid. He took off challah. In America, when we say, what you don't know doesn't hurt you. So the Rosh is saying a bigger chiddush. The shear of challah, less than that, is fine. And that's where the Mechaber Paskins in Shin Samach Vav, Sif Vav. So now the shaila is, can we say, vivai that lemaisa, the shear challah, less than shear challah, less than 1/48, is kosher by Erevin, even though it says kikka shaleim, hu adin lechem Mishna. What makes it even more tricky, I should say, Rashi says, on the shear of 1/48, ketanihi ve'ein ze chasar, a small amount. So it sounds like it's a din of the amount. 1/48 is not considered a chasar. And that indeed, that's the shita of the Chacham Tzvi, to my knowledge, one of the first that discusses our shaila. In Siman Samach Beis in the Tshuvas, someone asked him, part of the matzah got burnt, it fell off, but it's only a small part of it. Zok to Chacham Tzvi, I point to the Gemara in Erevin, that Pei Amid Beis, Pei Aleph Amid Aleph, and if it's less than 1/48, you have no problem. And he says, and he really echoes with the lashon of Rashi, Chol shechasa ma'at le'mikri shaleim hu adin lechem Mishna, but less than 1/48 is kasha. So the Chacham Tzvi is applying Hilchas Erevin to Hilchas Lechem Mishna. So less than 1/48, even if it cracked off, because we pass like the Rosh. So if by Erev Chatzeira is any reason that less than 1/48 is kasha, so too Hilchas Lechem Mishna. The second gadol, a little later gadol, and that's the very important tshuva, rather, if to be able to find it, but in the end of El Yerabah on Archaim, there are tshuvas from the Mechaber El Yerabah, and in the new print it's Challah Gimel. I wrote down the page, I'll tell you soon, but it's Shas and Tshuva Siman Yud Beis, and he says the following Yisoid. He too, but he was asked about a different question, it's even more of a shaila. He says, someone asked him that his wife made challah for Shabbos and simply forgot to take off challah. And now it's baked challah. So what do you do? Allah is allowed to take off from baked challah. You're supposed to take off from the Isa. And now it came Friday night and he has a lechem mishneh that's missing. So he's all upset. But she took off 1/48 for whatever reason. So Zakti El Yerabah, that's fine. It's okay. It's not just like it's kosher Hilchas Erevin. And then he adds a beautiful knech. He says, you'll say, but how do you compare? Erevin is totally an Eva, and here it's not totally, here it's totally in the mitzvah. It's a beautiful Yesod. If Lamaisa in Erevin, that the whole problem is the Ruach Habriyos Noichemenu. People are unfortunately very quick to condemn, and they're critical. If you could get away with missing less than 1/48 in Hilchas Erevin, so Kol Ruach Habriyos Noichemenu, Ruach HaMokim Noichemenu. The Baruch Shem is easy to get along with them. If you have less than 1/48, it's good for Erevin with people, it's good for the Bari Yoilam. And then he goes even further, and he says, I'll prove it to you, we'll soon see. If you have two broken pieces of challah, let's say a big koilish split, so you could, you could put it together, and put a toothpick, whatever it keeps together, to hold it together. Why? So his point is, the ikka is, it has to look presentable, it has to look like a shaleim. And Chazal or Mashayah, a small amount, less than 1/48, still looks like a shaleim. So therefore, Tain is I'm sorry, I mentioned the wrong marmuk, I'm sorry. This is the Toiras Chatos. There's a mechaba of the Shvus Yaakov in the Tshuva Siman Yud Beis. We'll soon see if I get the Rabbi is holds vaket. But this sheet, the Teres Chatos Siman Yud Beis, in the end of the Teres Chatos from the Shvus Yaakov, says this very cheshbon. So we have two Gedolei Achroinim, the Shvus Yaakov, and of course the Chacham Tzvi. Less than 1/48 is kosher across the board. However, the Tshuva El Yerabot, like I told you, in the end of Challah Gimel in Archaim, in the new print is Challah Gimel Amar Tov Kuf Ayin Zayin. He Tain is like we thought simply. He says it's only a din that less a small amount they will be toila that you took it off al Challah. But let me think. Zakti El Yerabot. You come to the Shabbos Suda, and you know your child bit off a little piece of Challah. And what are we going to say? I'll live in a dream world that they took off Challah. But you know it's not shaleim. The Halacha says take a shaleim, and you're taking a broken Challah because it looks like someone took off Challah. Who are you fooling? So he doesn't like this whole approach, and he strongly disagrees with those that hold it's mutter. He says if you have to be shaleim and it's not shaleim, there's no share to it, even less than 1/48. This is also the shita of the Karban Nesanel in Erevin. The Pri Megadim quotes the Chacham Tzvi. As you see, this is a maracha mul maracha. But one thing I want to add, Rashi says beferish that 1/48 is a small amount. Isn't that the biggest ride who adin by Lechem Mishna? But I don't believe so. You know why? I'll tell you very simple. Rashi is bothered by a simple question. There are two shiurim in Lechem Mishnah. 1/24th, which typically we take off, regular balabos, and 1/48th, which is again bigger. So the question is, smaller. So the question is, why was the Gemara only makel 1/48th? Why not be a sport and 1/24th also? Teretz is no. 1/24th is too big. 1/48th you get away with it. It's not so nikah. So it's Rashi explaining why Chazal used the share of 1/48th, not 1/24th. But at the end of the day, our Shaila, we have maracha, literally maracha mul maracha. The Mishnah Berurah makes no mention of the machlokes, unfortunately. The Shulchan is very clear. He says some are makel because like Challah, like Erevin, I don't see the Dimyan. There it's totally an Eva, here it's totally an Matzias, it's not a shaleim. So Lamaisa, there is definitely a reason why minig ha'olam is to try to get shleimim mamish, and that's why lechatchila, when you have a shaleim, make sure it stays shaleim. And I'll give you a few practical examples. When someone bakes challah, don't be quick to take it off the pan, because sometimes it sticks to the pan. Take it off slowly. Also, if a person buys a bakery challah, they have a label on it, bakery label, don't take it off before the hamotzi. You end up, taking off part of the shleimus. If challah is stuck together, then separate it carefully. It shouldn't stick one on the other, because if let's say some of B sticks on A, so then you have an A plus. But A plus is not good either. We'll soon see, because it's too much. B is chasa, and A is too much. So you have to take it off carefully. Of course, when you transport your matzos home from the Matza bakery, don't hit every pothole. Drive slowly and carefully, because you hit these bumps, the matzos break. They're very fragile. So I definitely, you could say the minig ha'olam is to be very, very careful to make sure that the matzah is shaleim. But there are enough places that are makel that if it's missing less than 1/48th, you can be makel. You have the Chacham Tzvi, you have the Pri Megadim, you have the Teres, you have the Shvus Yaakov. But there's another tzad to be makel, which in Chayra is extremely negeya for Pesach B'chlal. The Chelkas Yakov in Archaim, Simin Tzadik Gimel, was asked this simple shayla: what do you do Pesach? You buy as much as matzah you can, but lamaisa many times you don't find enough shleimim. I mean, it's almost shalom. It's a little crack over here, a nick over here. So his shita is, and he puts it all together, that the side of Lechem Mishna is kavod habracha, kavod hashchina, and it's all totally in be'enei habriyas what's considered shaleim. And when it comes to matzah, people understand. You can't Sometimes you can't get a perfect matzah. So as long as it's acceptable, it's something like the Svar told you, Be'enei Elikim Ve'adam, Ruacham Brias Lechem. If it's considered Shalom Be'enei Abrias, that's enough. Now he says it with the Svar. Rabbi Shleimus Zalman and Shmir Shabbos, Nun Hei Ha'ara, Chav Dalid, says it, Poshet as a Hechrich. He says, Lamaiz, you have to be Seimach on this Svar. Because you see, Roiv HaChallos, even sold, bought Challos, and certainly matzos are missing. The Chotshani, I'm missing Karelitz and Ahmed Kufhei, also says this, we Seimach Lechatchila. When it comes to matzah, that it's inevitable that sometimes a little bit cracks off, as long as it appears to be a shaleim, that's okay. So it's very relieving, especially talking Erev Pesach, if it's missing less than 1/48, you have the Chacham Tzvi and others that are mekel, and some are machrim. If it's missing a small little piece that's kamat, not nicker, then you have this new svara that is lechem shalim. You know, it's turasei bekach, you want to say, but that's not a chesaron. The Shabbos b'Shabbatoi, it's Amatov Chav Beis, adds a stickle of hechrich to this. Because the halach is in Kuf Samach Zayin Sif Aleph, that before you make hamotzi, during the week you start cutting it, either tear off a little piece or you make an indentation, and Shabbos, we'll soon see the minig of many people do the same. You make a slight indentation. The kasha is, if you do that, it's going to end up being a little bit chasam. If you have especially have a water challah with a crust, if you make an indentation, you're basically making some of the challah to crack. So how could it be a shaleim? Teretz is, if it's darke bakach, a little bit doesn't bother us. That could be the right, not a perfect raya, because if that's the mitzvah to make the indentation, that's part of the mitzvah. So you're making the bracha on a shaleim, and this is a shaleim because you're starting the cutting. One thing I will tell you, I was once in someone's house for Shabbos, and his wife worked very hard to make it a beautiful Shabbos, and of course she baked fresh challah. Because the husband came out right before Kiddush. This Shabbos we have to make hamotzi on matzoh. And this is not near Pesach. I said, what's wrong? Well, we had a problem. The challah stuck to the pan, and I tried to take it off. A little bit stuck to the pan, so it's not shalom. We're going to use matzah. And I was thinking, oy loy lezesh saniguria nasa kategoria. He means well, but he's an amoritz. Because if it's missing less than a 48th, we have the chacham tzvi. And especially his wife was crushed. She has a guest and she's being serving matzah. What was it? Lechem oini. So he was missing the very important mishkal hachasidis, the Mesil Sharm, Perek Chaf writes, you have to know when to be from. So he should have first learned halachas of Lechem Mishna. Less than 148 is mutter like the chacham tzvi. Others argue. So in this case you have to mahader in Kvayid Ishtay. And the truth is the Challah should remind him of that also. Because why do we cover the Challas Friday and Shabbos? A year pas b'ishasay. So if you're not supposed to mavayish the bread, how are you allowed to mavayish your wife? So Layamar is Chassid and Mishkal Chassidis. So certainly when it comes to Merad Mechaveira, you could rely on the Chatchila. You should rely on Chatchila, the Chacham Tzvi. Less than a 48th does not take away the shleimus. We'll soon see if a piece, a big piece detached, we'll soon see Eitzah also. But you have to know halacha before you're from. That's what I was makaf my Rabbeim. A person that's from has to learn halacha carefully to know if it's frumkeit or krumkeit. But anyhow, getting back. Also, agav, Eitzah Toiva, it's good for the shalom bayis and the blood pressure. Very often, when it comes to the end of Pesach, there are no more shleimim. So the Eitzah is Erev Pesach, before it gets all, tense, go through the boxes, take out all the shleimim, and leave the shvarim for the children to have breakfast. Now, when they wake up in the morning, they have breakfast, and they broke all the shleimim you have, not their fault. They don't know. What do you expect? So take all the shleimim, put it in one box, put it on top, and the breakfast, whatever they want, they could eat. Another box, this way you have enough shleimim till the end. To return to original Chakira, so what exactly is the chiyuv of shaleim legabi lechem Mishna? So it's probably totally in that machloikis, but no doubt about it that up till 148 is a machloikis. It doesn't have to be shaleim mamish. We said a little bit is okay. I think the right answer has to be nira k'shaleim. It has to be what's passable be'enei habriyas. L'maisa, to apply this more specific, let's start with the common, it happens often, someone, for whatever reason, either in shul or he's in a hospital for Shabbos, whatever it is, he doesn't have any shleimim. He has a piece of challah here, another piece here, and has no shleimim. So this is klor l'chol hadeyos. If there's no shleimim, take 2 prusais. Why? Ikka chasam and aseifa. Wrong, it's not chasam and aseifa. What's the ikka? Mishna, Lechem Mishna. That's the pasuk. Shleimim is a maila in the bracha, but the chiyuv, like the Taz Daraisa, like Dan Darabanan, is Mishna. And Taka will soon see the Meish of Dava, the Netziv, in the Tshuva Siman Chafalef, the Aruch HaShulchan, and Siv Ches, the Toisei Shabbos, all in our Siman Reish Ayin Dalet. If you don't have 2 shleimim, there's an independent mitzvah to have Lechem Mishna, to pick up two prusais and make a matzoh on that. I saw a very gishmak shaila. Someone had, it was him and his brother, to make a long story short, they're home for Shal Shuddis. There's only 2 shleimim. So his brother's first starting mincha, when he finished mincha, he doesn't want to wait, but he can't take the shleim for himself, he has to wait for his brother. So he had an idea. He made a matzoh on the 2 shleimim, cut off a little piece less than 1/48th, put it down. His brother came in from shul, goes, "Oh, my brother's so nice, he left it for me." Little did he know that his brother made it, was beitzeh on it, and took a small piece. And he relied on the shita of the Chacham Tzvi. So if he told his brother, he said, "I didn't touch it," you're not a lie, but he didn't say anything. Maybe it's his das, but let's talk about Lechem Mishna. So Pashtis, Chacham Tzvi. Okay. Does his brother have to be same with Chacham Tzvi? That's an ethical question. But I have a more of a halachic question. Maybe the halacha, if it's missing 1/48th, is it's not a lack of chashivas, because that's the darke bekach. But if you cut on the challah for your hamotzi and you use it, how do you give it to him? I'll give you a mashal, a sabas oizim. You know, it says by the Ravois for Shana Rabbah, I feel all the echad, the bad echad is kosher for Hashanas. But if you have a klapta Hashana, who will use a klapta Hashana? Now how could that be? All the echad and bad echad, 1 is good, and 5 Hashanas that are beautiful, just as geklapped a few times. That's possible. Maybe like a geshlug and a kapara. But once it was used, maybe that's the psul. So Lamaisa, I looked into this a little bit, and there's another problem, really. The problem really is the first brother wasn't yoytzel b'chlal Lechem Mishna, because you have to be beitzeh and have a kezayis of the Lechem Mishna. And Taka, I saw the Rav Zilberstein in a Sefer Chashukei Chemed in Shabbos Kufi Zayin with Beis. He has this very shaila. He has a shaila where someone was he only had 2, not after the case of 2 brothers, but his Yisoid, he quotes Rabbi Yashiv that you can't be yoitza Lechem Mishna if you don't take more, at least the kezayis. So it seems that maybe without that it would be a problem. What we're saying is a more fundamental problem. Once it was used once, it's a chasa. Isn't that mistav like that? And we'll soon see that Tziv says a similar svara, that if you have a porous, so it's a porous. If you cut a porous in half, so you have a chasa. So the chayra, there's 2 problems with this eitzah. One is you have to have a kezayis of the Lechem Mishna, and the chayra one is it's like it's like a used Lechem Mishna, can't be reused even though it's less than 1/48th. If you think I'm wrong, then Adrab, I'd like to hear what you think. Next question touches upon what we mentioned earlier, and that is basically the minig oilam during the week before you make a matzoh. Either you break off a little bit of it, or you cut with a knife, you make an indentation, a reshim it's called. Should that be done on Shabbos and yomtov as well? So if you look at Shulchan Aruch Kuf Samach Zayin Sif Aleph, the Shulchan Aruch said the following: when you break off a little piece of the challah on a roll during the week, not Shabbos, so you typically break off a piece, not entirely, keep it connected, make a hamotzi, and if the hamotzi you could quickly take it off and eat it without making a hefsek. So the Mechaber cautions, but don't make too much of a cut in the bread, because once you cut the bread that it's already detached, so you lost the shaleim. How do you know when it's still considered attached or detached? So the Mechaber gives us a proba, a test. Hold the smaller part in your hand. If the bigger part falls off, that means not connected. So you broke it, really broke before. But let's say you hold a smaller pot and the top pot, the other pot still stays with it. That's a shaleim. That's all regarding weekday. Shabbos, so you look in the Magen Avram and other Paiskim, Matza Shekel explains, he says Shabbos, don't even start cutting the challah. Because you might overdo it and you're going to lose not only shaleim, you're going to lose Lechem mishneh shaleim. But a little indentation, a little reshima you could make, but just don't cut too much. Based on this, we can understand that to make a little reshima is fine. Lamaisi, you missed you making a little bit chasa. Inevitably, when you cut, especially in a water challah, a little bit of the crust cracks. Maybe on an egg challah not, but or water challah for sure. So that we said earlier, a little bit of tzuras hamitz is fine. But the question is, what people do is they make a little indentation. They don't want to do too much. Then after the hamotzi, they spend 5 minutes looking for that indentation. And why are you looking for it? To save time. So this, the Tzreis HaShulchan in Pei Bei, Sivka and Kuf Ches quotes the Tzemach Tzedek. He once spoke, he said, the Zayda once spoke about what he calls it, a diktuk she'enoi nitzrach. A hiddur people do which is almost counterproductive. And his example was this. You make an indentation for one reason, to find it and make it easy to cut. So to make the less hefsek, and you spend more time finding it than the whole thing is worth. So it's interesting that mitzad halacha, the tzalach in brachas on the Testament base says better on Shabbos make no reshima whatsoever. That's the way the tzalach paskins, and many have that minig. Some have the minig that they make a reshima and they note where it is and they continue cutting from there. So you save time. But it's not so surprising to say some have a minig, they make an indentation, and it comes to, and then after hamotzi they cut any place. So this I saw in the Torah's Chaim I mentioned earlier. He's one of the Mekubalim besides, and he says that everything has to have a reishis toiv. The reishis toiv shows it's all Hashem, and he explains the minig of making a roishim before the hamotzi. You're being magdish to Challah Hashem. So there are three minhagim and klais. You'll notice some make the reshima and they continue cutting on afterwards. They know where they made it, so that makes sense. Some make a reshima and don't look for it. That's al pi Kabbalah. And some make no reshima on Shabbos or yomtov. That's the Noid Yehuda, and that's the minig. Your minig is the right minig because it's your minig, and Ebony Shalom al Yisrael. Question: if someone came to Challos once and there was no Lechem Mishna, he was very distraught. So Lamaisa, we're allowed to tell him a little divrei nechama that there are some Rishonim that hold that Lechem Mishna on Challos is not really a chiyuv, and the cheshbon is very simple. we take Lechem Mishna al double. How was it in the midbar? So every day they had two portions, Erev and Boiker. Boiker and Erev actually. Erev Shabbos it fell two portions, 4 portions altogether, right? So Friday morning they had 4, they ate 1. Friday night they had 3 left, they ate 1, weiter. Shabbos morning they had a Suda, they had 2. But the second Suda, we call Shalosh Sudas, there's only 1 left. Zok Tishibali Alek, one of the Rishonim in Siman Tzadik Gimel, that could be, based on this, there's no Chiv Lechem Mishna by Shalosh Sudas. Because they didn't have it, so why do we have to have it? However, the Mechaber Reish Tzadik Aleph Siv Daled says explicitly on Shalosh Sudas you don't have to have Kiddush, but you have to have Lechem Mishna on 2 kikaros. The taina of the Shvar Leket is convincing, but the Teres is not really so convincing. Because we don't do what they did in the Midbar exactly, because we don't take 3 at night. We learn from the Midbar that since a Shabbos fell double, every one of our Sudas has to have a double Lechem. If someone has a 4th Suda on Shabbos, let's say he forget, he's hungry, and he washed the 4th time, I have to Lechem Mishnah. It's not a din what they did, it's a din that our Suda has to have double. So even Suda Shlishis has to have Lechem Mishnah. Next group of questions is really based on our sugya, but now we have a little more of a understanding of what's going on. If something is missing on the challah, or the matzah. That we know that lemaisa less than 1/48 you could be makel. A little bit that's darker b'kach, they're much more makilim. The question is if a matzah, piece of the matzah either got burnt and the person cracked off all the burnt to make it look nice, and now it's chasa. Or a little of the matzah cracked off. And the maisa, it's more than 1/48. So you have nothing to be saimach on the chayra. So here there's a Hayin de Amri Inchi, the Belt says this, and that basically is that if you take the matzah carefully and burn the place that it's chasa, and it looks now like it was baked and punked, that area has a nice border, but it's not chasa. If you could sort of reconstruct the matzah by burning it, it's kosher. Now, where does it say this? We have a lot of tshuvas written, a lot of in Shulchan Aruch it's written. So I found a stipler in the Chadoshim, in Pesachim Kufid Gimel. If you want to see it also in the Rav Yashiv's Tshuva Sefer, Chelik Daled, Simon Mem Tes, he quotes the Tshuva of the stipler, very short Tshuva actually. He says the minig oilam is that you cut the challah, that you burn the edge to make it a shaleim. I looked in all the achrayim in Simon Reish Ayin Daled, I didn't find anything. Is it correct? He asked Rabbi Yashiv, his mechutin, is it correct? Is it a right minig? So he says maybe the minig is based on an interesting rekeach. Now what is this interesting rekeach? So the rekeach is quoted in Shulchan Aruch Kuf Samaches Si Beis. Zok the rekeach. If someone had a beautiful challah, a big challah, a koilich, whatever it is, and somehow it's split in half. Now you have half a challah, much more than 1/48. And Zok the rekeach, no problem. Put the two challahs together and use a kisem. Obviously you can't use a muktzah stick on Shabbos. Use a toothpick, or you mayachid a special kisem for the occasion. And lemaisa, put the kisem through the two pieces, and now you made a successful surgery. You grafted the two together. As I state in rekeach, the pella is, who are you fooling? What, a cosmetic surgery? The mice is two pieces. It's not connected. I'll say maybe derech tzachas, if you put peanut butter in the center and stick it together, that might be a better trick, because at least it sticks together. But you put a kisem, who are you fooling? The teretz, all the achrayim explain, is, like I told you earlier, the yisoid of Lechem mishneh shaleim is, it should be near a kashalim. It should look presentable, kvayir bracha, kvayir HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The lashon that we saw earlier, if it's ruach habriyas leichemenu, ruach hamakam leichemenu. Or as the Rabbi says, the Baruch Shem gives you shefa b'shleimus, give him back shleimus. But the fact that you reconstructed it, but l'mayis it looks good. It's not fooling anybody. It covered a bracha that should have the external appearance of being a shalom. And this bemes is pshat in the rekeach. There's a beautiful tshuva in the Sheva Kosi Chelik Beis Simon Shin Mem Beis. He says the yisoid of a shalom is it's a bizui mitzvah, and the ikka is it should give an appearance of a shalom. This is enough to give an appearance of a shalom. In a later tshuva Chelik Dal Simon Peiches, he says even a bigger chiddush that Pesach Frank was maskim to. If you take a slice of bread and make it into a toast, sininim, so it becomes like a new chayfetz. It's considered shalom. Now that's a big chiddush. But we can understand, if you know how to burn it properly, it looks like the matzah came out like that. If it came out like that, it's not a shalom, it's not a chasa, it's a regular shalom. Rav Shleim Zalman, his lashon in Halicha Shleima and Pesach Shin Lamed Beis, that lemaisa, it is makam lafakbeg on the minig, but kvan hagum. That's the minig oilam. The Chutshani in Chelik Dalet Simikofei is a little more supportive of the minig, and he doesn't like the minig at all. And he says that the maisa, it's hard to understand. How could you take a broken matzah and burn it? How does that become whole? But the minig, as we said, is lahakol, because it's considered like it's tzurasi bekach. It's near a kashalit. Can you make this burning surgery on Shabbos or yomtov? So you think chas v'shalom. But the truth is, why is it so chas v'shalom? The matzah is baked, so ein afiyah chafiyah. What's wrong with putting fire to a matzah on Shabbos? And truth is, mitzad afiyah is not a problem. The real problem is that the matzah catches onto fire, so you even havara. Then what happens? You blow it out. You have on kibud. But on yomtiv, l'chayra, there's no issa v'avara. And taka the paiskim say that you're allowed to put a matzah to the fire because it's like a vara that you're transferring a fire. L'tzarech yomtiv. The question is, you might. Oh wait, we'll get that soon. You might blow it out. So first, don't blow it out. But I saw taka the sefer yomtiv l'chasai. He points out that if otherwise the matzah is going to burn entirely, then it's considered oichel nefesh to make kibud. So the Ma'isa, that's very a chiddush, but if you do it carefully, and people know how to do it, they take a candle, not a fire, and you make it proper, it won't be a problem on Yom Tov. The only thing is that shleimus Zalman Oyabach in the Shmir Shabbos in Challah Gimel, in the Hagoyis Nun Hey Lamed Hey, he says very strongly, you can't do this on Shabbos or Yom Tov al Tmesakin. You're making from broken into a hole. The McDonald's Eliyahu has a very thorough, beautiful tshuva Challah Gimel, Simin Kuf Ches with Grace Derecheret of Shleimus Zalman, but he proves conclusively that there is no problem of tikkun when it comes to Lechem Mishna. What's the svara? Very poshut. A broken matzah is not treif, it's not puzzle, it's missing the mile. But the whole thing is a mile. So how can it be tikkun mana? And he brings the chayra, a beautiful raya. I mean, the chayra, it's the raya of tshuva. The Mechaber says beferish in Kuf Samach Zayin, where when he talks about the grafting, putting together two pieces of challah, he quotes the Rekeah that says even b'Shabbos you could do it. Tikkun, you're making Lechem Mishna. So evidently the pshat is that when you have a question of tarfis, if you're masakin trey, if you're mavat lissa, fine, that's awesome. But here it's kasha either way. So the Ma'isa Ayin Sham, it's a very convincing argument that there wouldn't be a problem of tikkun on Shabbos or Yom Tov. Of course, best to do it before Shabbos or Yom Tov. You don't get into the problem of kiboy and havara, even though on Yom Tov probably the havara is okay. But the Ma'isa, this is the eitzah. If someone had a matzah that broke off, you take a candle, people know how to do it, you give it that scorched look, it looks like it's complete. Now, this is only when the matzah is chasar. If it came out of the oven and the edges got burnt, but you didn't touch it, that's fine. It's shaleim. Very often things get burnt, that doesn't take away from the shleimus. Once it came out, that's the tzura, and that you have to keep to make sure that nothing goes wrong. A challah that's split, as we said earlier, like we quoted the Rekeah, in Kuf Samach Zayin, it's Kuf Samach Ches, the Lamaisa, you have to make sure that it is stuck together, and it looks like one. The Rekeach says beferish even on Shabbos. The only thing is, someone to say that he means to say that during the week there's no reason to take two hairs, put it whole, because during the week is less of a chiyuv of shaleim. But one thing I will tell you, the Rab in Kuf Samaches Siv Gimel, after he quotes the Shulchan Aruch and the Rekeach, you can make this grafting. He says, but lamaisa ein lismach al zem, because lamaisa it is not a shaleim. So grafting two parts of a challah together is best to avoid it, but if you have no choice, especially if a shalom bayis issue, you put a toothpick, connect the two pieces, and that is definitely good, like the Rekeach and the Shulchan Aruch. Someone had the shaila that matzah, very often it cracks, but not cracks into two pieces. It's hanging. Is that considered shaleim? The whole matzah is there, but it's cracked. So the emphasis, we have to use the probah, the test that the Shulchan Aruch gives. Hold on the smaller part of the matzah. If the matzah remains whole, it's whole. If it cracks off, that means it never was as shaleim. If someone had asked me to shaila, he had matzah stuck on a pan, on the bekela or the baking pan, and he's afraid to take it off, it might some of it stick to it, and you're going to have to come on to a shaila. Is it kosher? Can you make a bracha hamotzi on the matzah, on the challah in the pan? Or, a question, two doughs connected, he made two different challah doughs, and that's called neshicha in hilchas challah, and now it's attached. So it's shnayim shiachas. Can you use it as it is? The third question is the section challah, the old-fashioned section challah, which is different. They take doughs, stick it together, bake it, and you buy it, and when you take it home, you peel off one challah, second challah. Is that lechem mishneh? And the most problematic is the machine matzos that are made in big sheets, and after they bake them, they split them. Are these the fair kashas? Are they considered lechem mishneh or not? So the easiest question is challah that two challahs that were made separate and put in the oven separate, and somehow they expanded and connect. That is not a problem to separate it. You're not cutting a kolich in half, which is considered a chaser. You're taking two that connected against your will, and you're separating them. So what's wrong? In fact, the Shalom Meshiv in Medura Kama, Chelik Aleph Sim, in the end of Kuf Samach Zayin, says it's even probable that you can make the bracha when they're connected. Because once they're two, so why chep? You chep, you might ruin it. So this I saw the Shmir Shabbos in Unhei Vav, Paskin like this. He says, some hold that you should separate it first. But no doubt about it. If you made two, it doesn't become two against your will. So if you want to be careful, separate them slowly. If you're afraid to do that, keep it as whole, as one. It's really two. You can rely on the Shalom Meshiv that holds is fine. If Lamaisa, a little bit is missing after you separate it, again, we have the Svara, 148, last 148. We have the Svara B'chlal, that's Darki B'kach. A really challenging question is a section Challah. Now, section Challah was mitzarechad. It's not like a big Challah you cut in half. It was separate strands of dough, but you put them together as one. You bake them as one. That's worse than a challah that's stuck in the pan against your will. And this is the Matza shekel in our Siman, Reish Ayin Dalet Aleph. This is his suffix. Could be if you put them into one and bake them as one, it becomes one. See, the first case they stuck together against your will. That's two. But this you put them together. What make up your mind? You want one or two? So he has a suffix. Lamaisa, there are makilim here as well. If you made it to separate it, so Seif Mas Machshavat Chila. Taka the Minchas Pitim and Archaim, Reish Ayin Dal, he sends you to what he writes about in Hilchos Esrig Tiyumas. It's a beautiful sugya how everything is connected. The Machzi Avram in Simon Lamed Ches and the Tzitzel Yeza, two beautiful tshuvas, Chayel Yalf, Simon Chav Dalet and Chav Hey. The Ber Moshe, who lived here in Borough Park in Chelik Vav, Ayin Vav. He says that the section chals are fine for Lechem Mishnah. He quotes the Mechas Pitim and the Shalom Meshiv. Now, Lamaisa, Avada, you could be makel to use the section chal, but you can't say, well, since it's good separating them, I'll use them together. Because before you separate them, it's taka one. So you want to be makel, it's not as good as the two chal that stuck together. You can use it as one, you have to separate it and then use it. What's most challenging is the machine matzah. Now, the machine matzahs were always made as one big sheet. It's fascinating to see how it's made. And then they, after it's baked, or when it's still hot, they cut it so it looks like it was baked like that. But lamaisa, they were made as one long sheet on the machine and cut afterwards. And Rabbi Yonasan Shteif in his Tshuva Siman Kuf Pei Vav felt that it's not a shaleim. Because this is worse than anything else. You have to realize, this is not like the section chal. You have a piece of dough you stuck together. This is one dough, one batter, one sheet. It's always one. After it's baked, you decide to cut them into pieces. Who said das helps if there's no maisa? It was mitchila matzoh. It was one. However, the Tzitzel Yez that I mentioned earlier, he points out that the Rabbi Yonasan Shteif printed his tshuva in the Yerusha Plata. That's one of the Svarim that he put out before the war, and he basically says that three other Gedolim took exception to the Rabbi Yonasan Shteif about his psak. In other words, obviously, the fact that you made it to separate it is enough to make it different, which is a big chiddush. But the good news, I must tell you, I called someone who's one of the biggest mumchim. He said he saw every matzah bakery, machine matzah bakery today. All of them in the past 20 years have changed, and now all the matzahs are made into a sheet, sliced along one way and the other way. Each matzah is baked individually. I mean, it's not mamash, they put one at a time, but it's a sheet that's sliced before it's baked. So this is basically no shaila whatsoever. So that's why the good news, the heintige machine matzahs are fine. Very often you get a bilkala by big oilam. You can have like 20 almost stuck together. Now, I don't know if they make it on purpose or it's convenient, it comes out like that, but this way you could pick up sheets of bilkala. But these are not made to stick, it's not like a section challah. It's made as to be separate ones. To make it a little more convenient, they make it that it should stick, but it's not like one sheet that you're making it into challah, and this should be fine. The only problem is if often when you separate it, one tears on the other, so it's not practical. But the Maisa, as we said, the point of Challos is if it's made as separate, it remains separate. Two Challos that stuck together, let's say we'll talk about A and B, and you took the B off A, and part of B stuck on A. So now B is a chasa, and A is we call A plus, but it doesn't look right. It's a challah plus. So this Takid Machab in Kuf Samach Ches Siv Gimel says you can't use it as it is because it's too good. It's like an A plus, but it's too good. Yes, sekanatal. So before you use A, take off the remnants of B. If you want to reconstruct B and make your grafting, that's fine. But you can't use A if it's too much. To use challah or two that's stuck to the pan, I don't see a problem. I mean, some said it's not covered bracha, covered Shabbos, but then again, taking it off and it sticks and then it tears off is probably worse. So you're supposed to put your hands, the 10 fingers on the challah, so you'll put them on top, and it's not muktzah, the tray is not muktzah, it's a gefil zach. You know, some of my Zayda didn't do that. Zayda didn't have a tray, a bekelach like we have. But Lamaisa, it seems that if Lamaisa, you could make a bracha properly, keep it on it, and don't ruin the shleimus. Someone had a question, they sell these buns or bagels that are pre-cut. Because today no one has time to cut the bagel, they cut it before you. But they're still connected significantly. So again, if you use the test of the Shulchan Aruch, you hold one side, they're both equal in size, it doesn't plop down, obviously it's connected. So the chayah shouldn't be a problem. Now someone's saying, but it's a din it was cut, there's a chalois of cutting. I don't know, it's just svara. What does that mean? If it's one bagel and they cut it to make it easier to use, so the cutting makes into two, the cutting is convenience. If it's still a shaleim, it's still passed the test, it's fine. Let me leave you with a beautiful shayla. You can have it for Shabbos or yomtov, take it home to your family. Question: someone is stuck with one shaleim. Whatever the case is, he has one shaleim. That's it. And it's a Suda Shabbos, a day Suda, he's in hospital, or whatever it is. What do you do with one shaleim? So what's the problem? Be happy, the Marshal gave you a shaleim. But then again, it's Shabbos, and you Lechem Mishna. So the question is, should you cut the Challah before you make hamotzi, so you have two prusim, chachepis, or don't mess with success. Shalom is a maila, it's machaba. You can't break a shalom. So the question is, which is a better maila? So in Svara, the way we learned today, it's much smarter l'chayra to cut the Challah in half and make a mitzi on Lechem Mishna. Because again, the word shaleim is the Ramaz Chiddush based on a Gemara, fine. But Lechem Mishna, the Raisa, like the Taz, is not shleimus. The Ikka is two. You're giving up the Maila of shaleim, okay, but it's insignificant in comparison to the Lechem Mishna. And Taka, I saw in one of the Gedolei Achronim, the Ma'ori Yeshenim, Simon Yotes, in Simon Kufir Aleph, he says, if you have a shaleim, break it into two, so you have Lechem Mishna Gemur. However, there's a beautiful chiddush of the Netziv in Simon Chaf Alf Letshuvas Meisha that's also in the Netziv on Shas and Brachas Lachaf Tes, and he says, based on a Raya Ayin Sham, that it depends. If you have a shaleim and you break it, it's not just it's a porous, it's a chasa. You broke it, you used it. That is not good even for Lechem Mishnah, because there are three categories: there's shaleim, there's porous, and there's chasa. If you willingly broke this, it's not just a porous, not just a piece, it's a chasa. But if the person gave you two prusais, then that's Lechem Mishnah, because you have two. So the Minchas Yitzchak picks up on this, and Cheder Giyot Simen Chav Dalet, he says, so if you ever have this shayla and you work in the kitchen, or you're a son of the balabas, take the challah quietly in the kitchen, cut it in half, and bring it out as two prusais. Because the one that cuts it loses his lechem, his din of porous. So he ends up, he has nothing. So this is what the Paiskim seem to say. But what I liked about this is that here there's a riot we said earlier. We said earlier, if you have two lechamim and you cut a small piece just to be yaitza, to give it to someone else, he thinks it's two shleimim. Could be that's worse, because there you cut it. You made it into a chasa. So whatever the case is, this is what he paskins. I couldn't talk to you of.
Shame eating shir. I'd like to give a big shakar to our Smith for today's share. Once again, to have the great Challos sponsor in your share, call Egan Shir 718-851-8651, email ist@shivana.com. Chananya ben Akasha email Sekresh Bochel Zakis is the sale of here in Taramita Shanema. Although no office and Mansitka Yagul Terviad.
Hey. Okay.
First, I said, no, we should have a shleimus in the Indian of shaleim Lechem Mishna. Mr. says Sikkim.
Sikkim is a Mishna, the double of what we said until now. Lechem Mishna is based on a pasuk. It shouldn't be, small in our eyes. Some holds the Raisa, no doubt about it. It's a covered Shabbos. The question only is that where does the chi of shaleim come from? And the answer is it's really part. Beside that, it's a covered bracha during the week. But the special covered in Shabbos that we don't take anything that reminds us of Aniyas. We take covered Shabbos with the Shenkeit of Shabbos, with the Ashiris of Shabbos. Basically, the Lechem Mishna shaleim part is not ma'akev. It's an independent mitzvah. If you don't have shaleim, at least you have Lechem Mishna. That's also worthwhile. The question is, what's considered chaser? So comparing it to Erev Chatzeres, less than 1/48 would be okay, and that's Takadashita of many Paiskim. If the Paiskim that are Machmir, they hold that you can't compare because there's din in Eva. But we did say a Chiddush, which makes sense, something that's a darker Bakach, like matzos is missing a little bit, or even Challah. I said the stipler was not so makbi with Challah because sometimes it just falls off a little piece. That is negligible, even if you hold that stam, we don't compare it to Erev Chatzeres. But if you have a shaleim, be careful with the matzah, with the challah label of the challah, and of course mishkala chasidus. When a challah piece broke off, we could definitely rely on the chacham tzvi. It's still considered shaleim. When lamaisa, if it was used once, someone made a matzoh and took a little piece off l'chayra, it should not be used again. As far as making the rishima, the indentation in the challah, we have three minhagim. Some make a rishima and then continue cutting there. Some make a rishima just al pi Kabbalah, and some don't do it at all. If a shal shudis, whatever reason, there's no lechem mishna, don't feel terrible. Some hold there's no chiv, even though the mechaba does not like that. But there is a sheet that a shal shudis is less of a chiv. The minig is if a person has a chaser matzah mamish, if you could burn it and it looks like it came out in that way, that would be kosher. Even on yomtov you could do it b'shas chak, especially. Shabbos should not be done. Challahs that split, you could graft the two by putting a kisim in between or sticking it together. If a matzah is cracked but it's still attached, hold on to the smaller piece. And if the matzah sustains that testing, it's still a shaleim. If it's stuck in the baking pan, two challahs stuck in the baking pan, leave them there. To pull them off, you might ruin it. If one stuck to the other, it's also really considered two, not one, because you made them two. You could even make a matzoh like that. If the section challah is good, if you separate them, of course, for the hamotzi. The matzah, the machine matzah today, is not cut after baking, but before, so it's definitely a real shaleim. If part of B stuck onto A, so B is puzzle, and A should be removed the extra. A bun or a bagel that's sliced open is still a shaleim if it passes the test. If you have two pieces, make a matzoh on the two pieces. If you have one shaleim, halacha is, if you broke it before, make it on two. If not, make the bracha on the shaleim and have the shaleim.